Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great conference. My name is Nick Howe. I'm the author of Owning Model S, the definitive guide to buying and owning the Tesla Model S, and the host of a YouTube channel called News from the Frunk, the front trunk here in the Tesla. Today I had the honor of interviewing Chelsea Sexton. Chelsea is one of the most well-known people in the whole of the EV industry, having been a key member of the original EV1 team at GM and the star of the films both Who Killed the Electric Car and The Revenge of the Electric Car. Recently, Chelsea was in New Zealand taking part in the Leading the Charge event. I sat down with her to ask her about her experience in New Zealand and her thoughts on the EV industry. Chelsea Sexton, welcome.
Hello there.
So, hello New Zealand, I suppose we should say. You just got back from there. Unfortunately, you couldn't be at the conference this week, so we're doing this little conversation.
Yes, although I'm very tempted to hop a flight tonight and go back and join the rest of the adventure.
Yeah, it is a pretty amazing place. So let's talk EVs, and let's talk New Zealand EVs. You were participating in the road trip down there, leading the charge. How was it?
It was amazing and very fortifying for me. There is such enthusiasm down there and such community and market support. We need a couple of the other stakeholders to show up a little bit more, but just to go from place to place and see everybody come out so curious and all the drivers that very much love these cars and want to share them, it reminds me of everywhere else we've been, how community driven this whole idea is.
New Zealand, other side of the world for us, but in many ways, like as you just said, like many other countries in the world, has been compared in some instances to Norway. Similar population, similar landscape, but currently a very different state. Norway has thousands of EVs, New Zealand not so many. So does EV work in New Zealand? If you are, Joe Public in New Zealand, will an EV work down there?
It will absolutely work down there, and they are working for over 1,000 people of different stripes and varieties of cars. The biggest differences between Norway and New Zealand are that the industry has yet to really show up in force in New Zealand, in large part because their car market in general is largely secondhand imports, but also, the Nissan just pulled out of New Zealand with the Leaf, but BMW and a couple others are coming in, and so the market opportunity is significant, but the industry isn't quite there yet. And then the government support could not be more different, where Norway has decided this is the direction we're going, and government's all in, and there's the usual financial support to make that happen. And in New Zealand, the government does not embrace subsidies of any kind, and somehow that has translated into, if we're not going to do this one thing, we're not going to do anything at all. So the government is an anti-EV. It just is very, very hands-off and very much leaving it to private industry, which of course hasn't really shown up yet. So it's a bit of a conundrum, and this dialogue with the government is going to have to happen, or else they'll end up holding things back.
So is that the biggest roadblock down there? I mean, it's difficult to buy an EV if there aren't any available for sale. Is that, is that the biggest change that needs to happen? Do the manufacturers just need to get into the market?
I think that's the single biggest challenge, which is the same. It's the same way here and everywhere else. The biggest problem is lack of product availability, and by that I mean variety as much as volume. So I don't care how good any single car is. There's no car that's the car for everybody. So it's going to require a mix of cars and SUVs and EVs and plug-in hybrid and sort of the usual scenario, so that people can choose what works for them. And then, of course, the second biggest challenge is lack of awareness and sort of bad marketing or no marketing, because people can't buy what they're not aware of. What they don't know is possible. So those two things are the single biggest. And, things like Leading the Charge and those sorts of events can be very community driven and will help a lot with that second piece and that awareness and that marketing. But we still have to make it easier for people to buy the car in the first place.
Yeah. So what about plug-in hybrids versus the 100% battery electrics? Are plug-in hybrids a gateway drug to the 100% electric future, or should the two coexist in a country like New Zealand?
I think they should coexist everywhere. I mean, there are absolutely the purists in our movement. I'm just not one of them. From my perspective, the biggest step for anybody to take is to adopt a plug at all. So, and from once they do, they only choose things that are increasingly electrified in our experience and by data. So if what it takes is them choosing a plug-in hybrid first and having that safety net and sort of training wheels, so be it. And many of them will graduate to EVs. Some of them never will. But the data is also starting to show that a lot of the more sort of electrified plug-in hybrids, the Chevy Volt, things like that, are doing as many electric miles as the pure EVs. So we get a little too precious about this fight between EVs and plug-in hybrids when more of both of them would be a fantastic thing.
And what about for fleet buyers? At the conference today, we got a number of fleet people. Do you have a point of view on that?
I mean, fleets have absolutely a role to play in terms of adopting more of the vehicles and just the basic, CO2 effect and those sorts of things of just having more plugins on the road. They also provide visibility to the public who see them running around in fleets, and they ultimately help support a used car market when the vehicles are they come off lease for the fleet, but then they become available to somebody else. So there's a whole bunch of different roles to play that fleets can help with, and in part it helps to support automakers who are ultimately looking to sell cars in volume. So doing both retail and fleet at the same time is a really good way to get to that.
Cool, very good. So your trip to New Zealand last week was all about leading the charge. How do you get people excited about EVs? Is it marketing? Is it people just seeing the cars? And my opinion, having driven plenty of electric cars, is literally just getting the chance to drive them.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, all of those things are important. There's a role for mainstream TV ads as much as anything else, but we know that the single most effective thing we can do to get people to consider plug-in cars is to have that opportunity to see them, to talk to people that live with them, and to ride in or drive one themselves. I mean, for 20 years, we've been calling it getting more butts in seats. And, universally, the reaction is always, oh my God, it's just like a real car. They totally are, and in many cases they're better, but people tend not to believe that until they have the chance to experience them. So that makes these types of events, like the Leading the Charge Tour, incredibly important, and it's so valuable that the owners are willing to show up and keep doing this, as they have in most parts of the world for a lot of years now. But because it is very much driven by the community side rather than industry marketing, it's also crucial to move this forward.
Tesla Model 3.
Yes.
There was a tweet from Elon a couple of weeks ago to say that the Model 3 will be available in New Zealand and that the ordering process has opened up. Is that going to make a difference?
Well, it certainly is generating a lot of excitement there, I know. And there are already around 40 or so Model S's that have been imported and very well loved there. But yeah, it makes a huge difference. And certainly I think as everyone pays attention to what Tesla does, even though they're not the only one doing things. And so to the extent that Tesla says, well, this is a market worth paying attention to, others will undoubtedly follow. But it's also good because they need more support in terms of servicing, charging. So the promise is potentially that those things will also come, which will make the existing owners very happy. But Tesla plays a really aspirational role. So whether or not, everyone in New Zealand buys a Model 3, the fact that so many people are becoming aware of EVs because of Tesla is important for the rest of the movement.
So any other thoughts about New Zealand?
I'm really impressed and very, very thankful to get to visit and to be a part of it. But I was amazed to see so many people involved and so many people showing up. And I guess I would just sort of end on my gratitude and how proud that community should be of itself and everybody involved with leading the charge and all the various stakeholders down there who are trying to do something in the face of not that much support. So thank you for letting me see it.
And Chelsea, thank you for adding your voice to the conference.